Hey everybody, welcome back to Positive News. I am Tuck Sir. If you're new here, this is a part of the internet where we take a short break from the noise of the world and look at a few real stories that remind us there's still plenty of good happening out there. No shouting headlines, no doom scrolling, just a handful of real moments where people helped each other, discovered something cool, or made their corner of the world a little better. Think of this show like a smoke break for the brain. You step outside the noise for a minute, take a breath, maybe grab a drink, maybe take a puff of something. No judgment here. And just hang out a while we talk and walk through a few good things that are happening on this giant spinning rock we call Earth. And if you live here, this isn't a lecture, it's a conversation. It's something. If something surprises you, drop it in the comments below. If a story reminds you of something you own in life, share it, again, in the comments below. Good vibes here are always welcome. Tonight we've got some global good news. A story that reminds us people still step up for each other. A couple wild pieces of science that make you go, wait, plants do what? And we'll take another step through gaming history. Odie's favorite part of the show.
I love it.
Then later, we slow things down for pause for thought. Just a quiet moment to sit with everything we heard tonight. So settle in, breathe for a minute, and let's take a pause in the noise. This is Positive News.
Episode 20!
Episode 20!
We don't know what we're going to do.
Let's head over to the one and Odie for this week in history.
Thanks, sir. I, the one and Odie, will now take you through this week in history.
Why does this Shark-O-licious candy look like it's been down some dark alleys?
Purple is the most delicious. Alright, let's take a quick pause and check out a few moments in this week in history. Things that happen around the same stretch of days in the past. And honestly, this week had some pretty interesting ones. Okay, let's start March 13th, 1781. That's the day that astronomer William Herschel discovered the planet Uranus. Fucking writers. Now, here's the funny part. Uranus had technically been visible from Earth for thousands of years. People had seen it in the night sky. They just thought it was another star. But Herschel was observing the sky through a telescope when he noticed something unusual. The object he was looking at wasn't staying in one place like the other stars. It was moving. According to History.com, that observation led to the confirmation that it was actually a previously unknown planet. The first planet ever discovered using a telescope pointed at Uranus. Which basically meant the known size of our solar system suddenly got bigger overnight. Now, moving on to March 14th, which actually gives us two entries this week. First, March 14th, 1879, the birth of Albert Einstein. Einstein would grow to develop the theory of relativity, fundamentally changing how scientists understand space, time, gravity, and energy. It's all relative. According to the Encyclopedia Britannica, his work reshaped modern physics and helped lay the groundwork for everything from nuclear energy to technologies we still rely on today. But March 14th also became something of a little more fun. It's now widely celebrated as Pi Day. This date, 314, matches with the mathematical constant pi 3.14, and according to the Exploratorium, the celebration started gaining popularity as a way to encourage interest in math and science. And yes, it usually involves eating pie, which might be the most perfect math pun ever created. Golden ratios, baby. Next up, March 15th, 1820, that's when Maine officially became the 23rd state of the United States.
Yeah.
Yay, Maine! Before that, Maine had actually been part of Massachusetts, but during a period of political negotiation known as the Missouri Compromise, Maine was admitted to the Union as its own state. Historical records from the Encyclopedia Britannica note that the compromise helped maintain a balance between free and slaves at the time in the state. That is actually a huge yay. And finally, we land on March 16th, 1926. That's when scientist Robert H. Goddard successfully landed the first liquid-fueled rocket. Now, this launch didn't go to space, not even close, but it proved something incredibly important. Liquid fuel could power rockets far more efficiently than earlier methods.
What about that liquor fuel?
According to NASA, that experiment became the foundation for modern rocketry, eventually leading to the technology used for satellites, space exploration, and the rockets that carry astronauts into orbit today. So yeah, not a bad week for history. New planet discovered, one of the greatest scientists ever born, math holiday created, new U.S. state added, and the early steps towards travel. That's how it gets done. It's an important week on the planet. Alright, let's head back to me, the one and Odie, for global good vibes. Alright, thanks me, the one and Odie. Alright, let's start things off with a few stories from around the world that remind us something pretty simple. Progress doesn't always show up in giant headlines. Sometimes it shows up quietly in classrooms, communities, even out in the ocean. First up, a story out of Pennsylvania. The Centennial School, which partners with Lehigh University, is celebrating 60 years of supporting students with disabilities. Now, 60 years is a long time for any school, but what makes this one special is the way it's built around helping students who learn differently find the support they need to succeed. The program focuses on individualized learning and hands-on support, and over the decades, it's created a tight-knit environment where students can grow academically and socially while building real independence. According to reporting from Lehigh University News, the school has spent 6 decades helping students learning challenges gain confidence, life skills, and educational opportunities that might otherwise have been harder to access. And chat, strays, when you hear something like that, 60 years, that means thousands of students whose lives were shaped by a place where they believed they were capable of more. And that's the kind of ripple effect that lasts generations. Next up, a story out of Texas that celebrates a different kind of milestone. A nonprofit called the Gatehouse just celebrated the first graduates from its program designed to help single mothers complete college. According to NBC DFW, the Gatehouse provides housing, childcare, and structured support so women raising children can pursue higher education. Something that's incredibly difficult to balance without help. The program creates a pathway where mothers can finish college, build careers, and move towards long-term financial stability for their families. And the first group of graduates recently crossed the finish line, which is pretty incredible when you think about it. Because every one of those degrees represents years of juggling school, parenting, work, and life all at the same time. Strays, imagine trying to write a college paper while also making sure a kid gets to school in the morning. That's some next level multitasking. Programs like this don't just change one life, they change entire families. And our last story tonight takes us underwater just off the coast of Miami. Marine scientists have been working on an effort to restore coral reefs by transplanting crossbred coral reef fragments designed to better survive warm ocean temperatures. The project, reported by the Associated Press, involves planting specially crossbred corals into damaged reef structures in hopes they'll grow into stronger, more resilient coral colonies. Coral reefs are incredibly important ecosystems. They support marine life, protect coastlines, and play a huge role in biodiversity. But they've also been under a lot of pressure from warming waters. Scientists are experimenting with ways to help reefs recover by introducing coral that may be better able to survive changing conditions. And the early efforts off Miami are showing signs that the transplanted corals are taking hold. It's careful, patient work, but it's one of the ways the researchers are trying to help reefs rebuild over time. Which is kind of cool. A reminder that sometimes progress doesn't happen all at once. Sometimes it happens piece by piece, fragment by fragment, until something bigger starts to grow again. And honestly, that's the thread connecting all three of these stories tonight. Whether it's a school supporting students for 60 years, a program helping mothers earn degrees, or scientists rebuilding coral reefs one fragment at a time, good things often grow slowly. But they grow. And that's some pretty solid global good vibes. And now, over to the incredibly handsome Tuxedo Cerberus for the bright side. Can I have some of that jerky?
Alright, thank you, Odie, and I'm happy you took a poop today. Let's slow things down for a minute.
Plumber?
Let's slow things down for a minute and look at the
You have
bright
a sump
side.
pump?
This is the part of the show where we zoom in on one story that might seem small at first, but says a lot of the kind of people we can look out for when we see each other. This one starts at a school where some students noticed something that didn't sit right with them. Some of their classmates had a school lunch debt. Now, if you're not familiar with that term, it basically means what happens when students get meals at school but their families can't keep up with the payment balance. And sometimes that debt can pile up. But instead of just ignoring it, these students decided they wanted to do something about it. So they started raising money. According to reporting from CBS News, the students organized fundraising efforts with a simple goal: pay off the lunch debt for classmates who needed help. And little by little, it started working. They raised enough money to begin clearing those balances so students wouldn't have to worry about whether they could afford lunch at school. Now, guys in the YouTube world, think about that for a second. These weren't adults running a non-profit. These were students helping other students. They saw a problem sitting in front of them and said, all right, what can we do about it? And honestly, that kind of empathy is pretty powerful. Because sometimes the biggest acts of kindness don't come from huge organizations or giant donations. Sometimes it's a group of kids deciding nobody around them should have to worry about something as a basic lunch. When people step up for each other like that, it sends a message. You're not alone here. We've got you. All right there. That's the bright side. Now let's send it back to Odie. Hopefully he's done pooping for some stone science.
Oh, I think everyone's done pooping for a while.
No, like 3-4 pounds, probably. No, I just had sushi
I
for
bet
dinner.
You're glad you pooped. You're still not getting any jerky.
All right, it's time for Stone Science. This is the part of the show where we look at a couple of things happening in the world of space and science and technology that are honestly pretty amazing, and sometimes a little mind-bending when you really stop and think about them. Tonight, we're starting with something that sounds like it came straight out of a science fiction movie. Planetary defense. Yeah, that's a real thing. NASA recently ran a mission called DART, the Double Asteroid Redirection Test, and the goal of this mission was surprisingly simple. Crash a spacecraft into an asteroid on purpose and see if we can change its path. Now, before anyone panics, this asteroid wasn't headed towards Earth. It was part of a test system specifically chosen so scientists could study the results. According to NASA, the spacecraft slammed into a small asteroid called Dimorphos, which orbits a larger asteroid named Didymus. And the big question was, could we actually nudge an asteroid off course if we needed to? Because if humanity ever discovered a large asteroid headed towards Earth decades in advance, one possible solution would be to slightly alter its orbit. Just a tiny push early on could mean the difference between an asteroid passing by Earth or hitting it. So the spacecraft impacted the asteroid at about 14,000 miles per hour. And the result? It worked. NASA confirmed the collision successfully changed the asteroid orbit, shortening the time it takes to circle. NASA confirmed the collision successfully changed the asteroid's orbit, shortening the time it takes to circle the parental asteroid. That's interesting. Which means, for the first time in human history, we've successfully tested a method that could potentially help protect Earth from dangerous asteroids in the future. Pause on that for a second. Humanity now has technology capable of deflecting asteroids in space.
Like Serb's feelings.
That's some real we live in the future energy right there. Now, let's bring it back down to Earth for the second story. Smooth. Because this one might change something a lot of people deal with every single day. Charging electric vehicles. One of the biggest challenges with EV adoption has always been charging time. Gas cars take a few minutes at worst to fill up, but electric cars can take much longer depending on the charger. Engineers have been working on that problem, and researchers recently developed battery technology that could allow electric vehicles, to charge in just a few minutes. But engineers have been working on that problem, and researchers recently developed battery technology that could allow electric vehicles to charge in just a few minutes. According to reporting from MIT News, engineers created a new battery design that improves how energy moves through the battery materials during charging. The result is dramatically faster charging speeds without damaging the battery. Now, imagine what that could mean. Pull into a charging station, plug in, go and grab a snack, not a whole ass burger, just a snack, come back out, and your car is basically ready to go again. That kind of breakthrough could make electric vehicles far more convenient for long distance travel and everyday use. Think about it like this. If charging an EV took about the same time as filling a gas tank, do you think people would switch? If you could do it, if you could put a full intercity vibe between the two, let me know in the comments. Would you switch over to like the silent driving EVs? Would you do it? I think I would. I gotta say I would. But I'm curious what you think, because sometimes the difference between an idea and widespread adoption is just one engineering breakthrough. And that's one of the things I love about science. Sometimes progress looks like giant space missions smashing into asteroids, and sometimes it looks like a group of engineers quietly figuring out how to make a battery charge faster. But either way, humans keep figuring things out. And that is stoned science. Now, on to Tuxedo Cerberus, the dashingly charming individual, for gaming history.
Alright, thank you, Odie, and good luck with that poop again. I hope it doesn't hurt too much. In the late 1990s, handheld gaming took a major step forward with the release of the Game Boy Color. Nintendo launched the Game Boy Color in 1998, building on the success of the original Game Boy line that had already dominated the portable gaming market for nearly a decade. According to Nintendo hardware history and documentation from Encyclopedia Britannica, the Game Boy Color introduced one of the most requested improvements to the system: full color graphics. Earlier Game Boy models displayed games in a monochrome shade, typically green or gray depending on the screen. The Game Boy Color allowed developers to design games with vibrant environments, colorful characters, and more visually detailed worlds. Despite the new hardware compatibilities, Nintendo made an important design that helped the system succeed. The Game Boy Color was backwards compatible, meaning it could play the large library of games released for the original Game Boy.
All the games.
It didn't cut it off, it made it bigger. Players upgrading to the new system didn't lose their existing cartridges. Instead, many of these older games could even display limited color palettes when displayed on the new hardware.
So badass.
The Game Boy Color also introduced games designed specifically to take advantage of its improved graphics. One of the most important releases for the system was the Pokemon Gold and the Pokemon Silver. These games launched in 1999 in Japan and internationally in 2000. And I don't know about you, but I was hella stoked when I saw Donphan in Mewtwo Strikes or Pokemon 2000. So think about that.
That's 4 weeks in a row we've covered Game Boys and
Pokemon.
That's awesome.
According to the official Pokemon game history, Gold and Silver introduced 100 new Pokemon, increasing the total number of creatures available to the series to 251. Still not getting my tree fitting. The games also added new mechanics and featured that deepened the experience. A day and night cycle changed which Pokemon appeared depending on the time of day. A breeding system allowed players to produce new Pokemon through daycare mechanics. New items, abilities, gameplay systems expanded how players interacted with the world. Adventure took primarily in the Johto region, but after completing the main storyline, players could also return to the Kanto region from the first Pokemon games. This effectively doubled the explorable game world and became one of the most memorable elements of the game. Pokemon Gold and Silver quickly became two of the most successful titles on the Game Boy, and are widely regarded as some of the most influential entries in the Pokemon series. I personally have a copy of Pokemon Gold still.
Oh yeah, I had Silver.
Together, the Game Boy Color and the release of the Pokemon Gold and Silver marked a major moment in handheld gaming history, expanding what portable games could look like and how deep those experiences would become.
It was cheaper, my family was poor.
It sounds like Odie's back from his poop, so let's head over to Pause for Thought and we'll wind things down.
Thanks, sir. Before we wrap up tonight, let's take a quiet moment for Pause for Thought. Every episode is a thread running through it, something tying the stories together. And tonight, that thread is milestones. Now, when we hear the word milestone, we usually think of the big moments, graduations, major discoveries, big achievements that get headlines, but something interesting shows up when you look closely at the stories we talked about tonight. Most milestones don't actually happen in a single moment. They happen after a lot of smaller steps. Now, think about the school we talked about earlier, the Centennial School. It's supporting students with disabilities for 60 years. That anniversary didn't happen overnight. It came from thousands of days of teachers showing up, students learning, and community continuing their work. And a community continuing their work. Year after year after year. Or the graduates from the Gatehouse program, where single mothers were able to finish college, and that milestone wasn't just one ceremony. It was years of classes, lessons, late nights, studying, raising kids, and pushing forward even when things were difficult. Even the science stories that carried the same idea. The DART mission successfully nudging asteroids' orbit seems around Earth like a huge leap forward, and it is. But it also came after decades of research, engineering, testing, and countless people working step by step towards that moment. And sometimes milestones are even smaller than that. Sometimes they look like a group of students deciding to raise money to erase lunch debt for their classmates. No big stage, no global headlines, just a moment where people saw a problem and decided to help. When you step back and look at all of it together, a milestone isn't really just a finish line. It's a marker along the road. Proof that progress happened. Proof
When
that
the poop finally finishes.
that'll be later. Proof that effort added up. Proof that people keep going. And the interesting thing is, we pass milestones all the time in our own lives. Sometimes we notice them, sometimes we don't. But they're there. The small wins, the moments of growth, the step forward that quietly shape where we're headed next. So tonight's thought is a simple one. Take a moment to notice the milestones, not just the big one everyone celebrates, but the small ones too. Because those milestones, those small markers along that path, are often the ones that matter the most. Thanks, sir. And that brings us to the end of tonight's episode of Positive News. But tonight's a little special if you didn't notice, because this episode marks number 20. 20 episodes of taking a few minutes out of the week to slow down, breathe a little, and look at the good things that happened in the world. And honestly, that milestone doesn't belong just to me. It belongs to all of you, everyone who's watched the show, everyone who shared the stories, these idiots here trying to act out the live read, everyone who's hung out in chat, commented on the YouTube, whatever it is, dropped good vibes, or just quietly listened while we took a pause from the noise together. When this whole thing started, the idea was simple. Just create a small corner of the internet where we could step away from the constant negativity for just a little while and remind ourselves that the good things are still happening out there. And 20 episodes later, we're still doing it. That only happens because people show up. Because communities like this one choose to spend a little time focusing on something positive together. So genuinely, thank you. Thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for supporting the show. Thank you for helping build a space where we can slow down, breathe, and reconnect with the good side of humanity. Tonight we talked about the people supporting students, programs helping families build better futures, scientists solving huge challenges, and small acts of kindness that ripple outward. Different stories from different places, but all reminders that progress is still happening. Sometimes loudly, sometimes quietly, but it's happening. And getting to share these moments with all of you every week is something we're incredibly grateful for. So if you've been here since episode 1, thank you. If you just discovered the show tonight, welcome in. Either way, I'm really glad you're here. This has been Positive News, episode 20. Take care of each other, keep spreading the good vibes, and we'll see you for the next time. Good night, everybody. Peace.